At 30,000 feet above the Pacific Ocean, the world was peaceful, until it wasn't. The hum of the engines, the gentle chatter of passengers, and the bright morning sunlight streaming through the windows painted a perfect picture of calm. But calm can turn into chaos in a single heartbeat. It began with a cough from the cockpit, then another, then silence. Within moments, the two female pilots of Flight 247 slumped unconscious over the controls, their hands falling lifelessly against the instruments. The plane, loaded with 212 souls, was now a ghost ship in the sky. In the cabin, a quiet man mopped the floor near the galley. His name was Ethan Cole, a single father and part-time janitor working double shifts for the airline just to afford his daughter's school fees. No one on that flight, not even the flight attendants, knew that he had once been a combat pilot, until life took everything from him. If you believe that kindness and second chances can change lives, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe, because what happens next will remind you that heroes don't always wear uniforms. Ethan had taken the janitorial job 2 years ago after losing his pilot's license. A tragic accident during a storm mission had cost him both his military career and his confidence. His wife couldn't handle the aftermath of his trauma and left, leaving him to raise their daughter, Lily, alone. He never complained. Every night, he told Lily that doing honest work, no matter what kind, was something to be proud of. That morning, Lily had begged to come along on the flight to surprise him with a drawing she'd made at school, a picture of her dad in a pilot's jacket, flying high above the clouds. He had smiled at that, never imagining how prophetic that picture would soon become. As Flight 247 cruised smoothly, Ethan took a break near the rear of the plane, watching Lily chat with a kind stewardess. He felt proud, even peaceful. But then the first sign of trouble came. The plane jolted sharply to the right. Coffee cups spilled, passengers gasped, and an uneasy vibration rippled through the cabin. When the intercom stayed silent, Ethan's instincts kicked in. He dropped his mop and ran toward the cockpit. Inside, his worst fear materialized. Both pilots were slumped over their controls, faces pale, lips turning blue. The co-pilot's headset dangled uselessly from her ear. The alarm screamed. A light flashed across the dashboard, cabin pressure failure. Ethan felt a rush of cold realization. The oxygen system had malfunctioned, and both pilots had succumbed to hypoxia. If he didn't act fast, everyone aboard would join them. He grabbed the emergency oxygen mask, securing it over his face. His training flooded back, muscle memory overriding panic. He pulled both pilots gently back, slid into the captain's seat, and steadied the controls. The plane's nose was dipping, slowly but steadily losing altitude. His hands trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of 212 lives now resting in his grasp. In the cabin, flight attendants scrambled to keep passengers calm, unaware of who was now flying the plane. Lily peeked into the cockpit door, clutching her red rose, the one she'd meant to give him after the flight. She saw her father in the pilot's seat, her eyes widening not in fear, but in awe. "Daddy?" she whispered. But Ethan didn't hear her. He was lost in the rhythm of survival. The controls felt familiar yet foreign. It had been years since he touched a flight stick. His mind replayed every bit of training he'd ever had: stall recovery, emergency descent, radio protocol. He tried the radio. Dead. The oxygen system had shorted out the main communications. The plane was isolated. The engines roared unevenly as turbulence slammed them from the side. He fought the yoke with all his strength, leveling the wings. Sweat rolled down his temples. He knew the passengers would be panicking now, feeling the sudden dives and jerks. But he couldn't think about that. Not yet. He manually rerouted the auxiliary power to the oxygen supply, forcing the cabin system back online. A sharp hiss filled the cockpit, the sweetest sound he'd ever heard. Oxygen was flowing again. The pilots beside him began to stir faintly, but they were still too weak. He needed to keep control until they regained full consciousness. For 30 long minutes, Ethan battled the elements, the aircraft, and his own memories. The flashbacks came uninvited, visions of the mission that ended his career. The lightning, the shouting, the crash, the feeling of helplessness as he watched his co-pilot's parachute fail. He had sworn he'd never fly again. But fate had other plans. Outside, the sky turned from gold to gray as a storm front appeared ahead. He could have turned back, but time wasn't on his side. Fuel was dropping fast. He whispered to himself, "Not today! Not again!" Then, gripping the controls tighter, he adjusted the flaps, reduced thrust, and aimed for a safe altitude of 20,000 feet, where the air was thicker and the oxygen levels safer for everyone on board. In the cabin, people prayed. Some cried. Others held hands. They had no idea that the man flying their plane wasn't on the manifest as a pilot, but as maintenance staff. Yet somehow, the aircraft was stable. The crew looked to the cockpit with renewed hope. Lily stood at the door again, her rose trembling in her small hands. A flight attendant tried to pull her away, but she whispered, "He's my dad. He can do this." And in that simple, innocent faith, there was something unshakable. After another 20 minutes of turbulent descent, the plane broke through the storm clouds. The ocean stretched out below, calm, endless,